The United States of America is no longer a democracy. By all measures, this once powerful beacon of democratic ideals has descended into a shameful dictatorship.
Complete control of the United States is now in the hands of criminal mob boss, Donald Trump, and his co-conspirators.
While the rest of America is battling the vicious and destructive COVID pandemic, sinister forces have been at work, dismantling what were once cherished democratic institutions.
How could it possibly happen? How could this flagship of democracy fall into the hands of a ruthless, psychopathic tyrant?
The answer: corruption, at every federal government level. And it began even before the 2016 federal American election.
This is when Donald Trump hired a group of savvy, but unscrupulous associates to deploy a criminal scheme, involving foreign government actors, and sophisticated hackers.
The entire operation was coordinated by Russian strongman dictator, Vladimir Putin. It is unclear whether Putin has trapped Trump in a compromat scheme, or whether Trump voluntarily agreed to cooperate, but the result is clear.
Putin's nefarious Russian mob hacked the Democratic Party, and released embarrassing data that began a smear campaign, aimed at discrediting Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton.
The Republican Party was a willing accomplice, by stifling the vote in Republican-dominated states, reducing the turnout for likely Clinton voters. Other illegal voting interference, such as ambiguous ballots, confused voters.
Republican redistricting resulted in voting districts that were changed to favor Republican wins.
Somehow, with Clinton basking in a solid 11-point lead in the polls, weeks prior to the election, James Comey, the head of the FBI, made a public announcement suggesting that the Clinton investigation was examining new evidence, which later proved entirely false.
And then, just before the election, Comey announced that no further investigation was forthcoming, but by then the damage was done, and Clinton sank in the polls.
As a result of Electoral College shenanigans, Clinton won the popular vote in the election, but lost the critical Electoral College vote, even though she had a 3 million vote lead on Trump.
Social media had been peppered with tens of thousands of fake news stories, and posts that were critical of Clinton. Most were completely false, but the barrage of propaganda took its toll.
Trump made huge promises to business leaders, and other influential community leaders, essentially recognizing the American federal government as a bloated cash cow, which he planned to carve out and distribute to supporters, and to his own criminal enterprise crime family.
Big business backed Trump, and with the help of Russian meddling, Trump won the presidency. But instead of building a team to run the government, Trump fired key people, and replaced them with inexperienced loyalists.
Important departments, whose leadership required Senate confirmation, were staffed by acting personnel. Since none of them would have a chance to be confirmed, they were totally unqualified. They were, however, loyal to Trump, and that's all that mattered.
Trump initiated racist policies, violating basic human rights by detaining legal refugees seeking asylum. He kept them in inhumane conditions.
Trump awarded huge, inflated sole source contracts to friends, associates, and accomplices, such as the southern border wall contract that cost several $1 billion.
The 3-mile wall fiasco eventually came to light, when strong winds knocked over the wall, proving that the contract was bogus, and exposing the scam to the public.
The real financial hemorrhage began as the government passed multi-trillion-dollar bailouts for business and individuals.
Trump loyalists ended up with a good portion of the funds, and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin refused to transparently release data showing where the funds went. Hundreds of billions of dollars are unaccounted.
Funds destined for COVID relief disappeared without a trace. The trillions of dollars in debt the Trump administration has squandered has to be borrowed from the Chinese government, and will be repaid over the next 10 to 20 years by your children and grandchildren.
Trump has looted the Treasury, and has been pumping billions of dollars into the stock market to make it appear that the economy is thriving, when in reality we are in a depression with worse numbers than the Great Depression.
When the markets stop being pumped and manipulated, the stock market could see a 90% decline. Yes, that is correct, 90% drop, which is what happened during the Great Depression.
The economy might not wait until after the election to begin to tumble, but either way, a disaster is looming for all the innocent American families that will have 90% of their wealth wiped out completely.
Not only will the American family suffer through a new depression, but the coronavirus is nowhere near being solved, but America will still have to pay back the trillions of debt that the Trump administration has siphoned out of the Treasury.
So everything around you is an illusion. America is in a desperate mess, and Donald Trump stands to take over America this election, through voter manipulation techniques, and by quelling the reasonable process of mail-in voting.
Trump is dead set against it, since it is so hard to suppress voters through mail fraud, despite his protestations of the opposite.
It is clear that Facebook, Twitter, and other major social media platforms are being manipulated by Trump.
Russian hackers, and other foreign actors are trying to destabilize America, by supporting Trump's efforts at being elected.
The Trump criminal playbook is self-evident. All major players in the previous Trump campaign have become felons, convicted of serious crimes.
Trump himself is a known criminal, and is basking in his belief that he is above the law. Trump must win the election, as he will certainly be up for serious criminal investigation, for crimes including treason, child rape, and the list goes on and on.
Trump has never answered the question as to whether he will peacefully transfer power to the election winner, if he loses, and many people in the know doubt he will leave voluntarily, since he faces lengthy jail terms, and possibly a death sentence if evidence supports treason, a charge leveled at Trump often these days.
It is extremely important that decent Americans vote against this tyrant this election.
If you think Trump has consolidated power to this point, another 4 years of legitimate occupation of the White House will completely destroy America.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Even if you are, then ask yourself, where will you be when the market crashes, and America loses the dollar standard to the Chinese yuan?
America is in the hands of a dictator, we all know it, but are afraid to say it. There is no magical force of good that will prevent Trump.
Only your vigilance, and your vote will help. It is up to you.